Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Today I wanted to talk about kind of a interesting topic. That's the evolution of plier handles. They've come a long way. People have been using pliers since, the 1800s. Back in the 30s, you'd have slip joint pliers like this, and they just had steel handles. Maybe they had a little bit of texture to them, like these. Obviously, they probably wouldn't have been chrome plated back then. These are probably from the 70s, some US brand, but it's not named on here. But they've come a long way. We have a lot of different handle textures and designs, and I have a good kind of array of tools here to illustrate that. And I'm going to talk about which ones I feel are the best, which ones are my favorite, the most comfortable to use. So we'll get right into that. Okay, so we're going to get started with what's probably the industry standard. Some companies do this really well, some not so much. These are just vinyl dip handles. I feel like Knipex does a really good job. They stay on here nicely, and they're grippy enough without being sticky. That's something that really bothers me sometimes. I don't like sticky vinyl. I don't know if maybe some of these pliers that I'm going to talk about have a little bit of silicone mixed into that, or maybe it is a different material. But that's something that really turns me off. So here on the pliers wrench, you have chrome plated pliers, but these give you some protection from gripping onto cold metal, but that's about it. They don't give you any cushion, but sometimes that's what you want. Here's an example of some that are supposed to be vinyl dipped, but they are kind of sticky. These aren't the worst example, but these Weeha vinyl dipped handles can be kind of sticky. I don't know if that kind of goes away after using them more, but for water pump pliers, maybe that's what you want because they're going to be wet. The ultimate in dipped handles has to be the textured dip from Knipex, like you'd find on their Cobras and some other tools. You can see here, if we get in close, it's got a nice textured grip, especially with these 250 examples or 250 millimeter. They give you enough of a wide purchase there that it is actually pretty comfortable to use. This probably is the ultimate thing to use when you are working in wet environments and greasy environments. So if I had to go with dipped, this would probably be my favorite. If we go to the Icon pliers, these are not the standard handles, and I'll show you why. I showed in other videos that I stripped the original handles off. This is one of those examples that I think there's probably a lot of silicone in this mix because these are very sticky. That's something I noticed even going into Harbor Freight and touching some of the Icon pliers. I really didn't like that texture. I'm not a mechanic, and I'm not using these in that type of setting. These are not staying out here in the shop. These stay in my SBLD maintenance bag. But if you were a mechanic and you had greasy hands, maybe that would be a good texture. I know a lot of people do like the snap-on grips, which are pretty similar, but that stickiness was a big turnoff for me. So I went ahead and just wrapped the raw steel in some blue heat shrink, and they're pretty comfortable. It just gives you that kind of vinyl dipped feel, but these are more grippy and not as slick, so that works out pretty good. You can see these are getting marred up already, but you could always easily replace these, and you could change out the colors if you want, so that's kind of a nice advantage. I'll show you why you might want to wrap your handles in heat shrink like I did. Here's a good example of some slip joint pliers. Obviously, slip joint pliers have come a long way. These are from Sonoda. These are my favorite slip joints at the moment. It has a triple slip joint, but it has a nicely textured handle, so it gives you good grip, and it's kind of a matte chrome finish, so then it's not so slick. So I really like that. It keeps the handles nice and slim. Obviously, if you're working in cold environments and not wearing gloves, that would not be the best. Here's another example of some Sonoda pliers. Here's their water pump pliers, one of their smaller versions. And what I did is I stripped the vinyl handles off. They were also really sticky. But what I didn't realize is that this finish underneath here, because it's chrome, is super slick. I was thinking maybe I could run them like this with raw handles, but this is just way too slick. You can't even hardly operate the tool like this. So I will eventually put something else on here, whether it's heat shrink or Maybe I'll wrap paracord around this and kind of make it like your EDC survival pliers, something that Doc at Last Best Tool would probably appreciate. Might just play around with it. So that's one example of raw handles that might not work for you. Here's another good example of some raw handled pliers that I really enjoy using. These are the little Work Pro pliers, and they have little textured grooves in here that keep it from slipping in your hand, and it has that matte chrome finish, so it sticks in your hand pretty well. You could obviously put heat shrink on here if you wanted to, maybe if you were using these, around water all the time. But then again, these are going to rust and they won't look so nice. So that's a good example there. Before we move on to comfort grip handles, I actually have one more dipped handle that I also really like from Weeha. These are their textured grip handles, very similar to the Knipex, maybe not quite as aggressive, but they give you a little bit of cushion. These are probably the most comfortable dipped handles that I have. This is on the bi-cut diagonal cutters here. But these are on a lot of their pliers, their classic series pliers. Although I noticed that since they moved to Lowe's, they have changed from these textured grips to the straight vinyl grips, which I don't like very much. So that's kind of a bummer. Hopefully they'll bring these back. I really like these textured grips. So I have several examples of multi-component handles or comfort grip handles here. The simplest version is the Milwaukee ones. They are, fitted onto the handles like this. And these old style are just one-piece construction, but they have a rubbery textured grip. I find it pretty comfortable. In fact, these are some pretty good electrician's pliers. They can do a lot. And I'm not a big fan of most of Milwaukee's hand tools, but these are pretty good. I put that in the good list. Knipex does a pretty good job with their comfort grip handles. Here you see on the twin grips, these are the 200 series or 200 millimeter. They're multi-component, so the red is plastic and the blue is more of a softer, rubbery, kind of reminds you of the textured grip here. It might be slightly harder, but I decided to go with the comfort grip on these twin grips because they are screw extractors here on the end. And when you're doing that, you want to keep consistent pressure on that screw as you're extracting it, if you can. And I feel like the comfort grip helps you with that. Gives you a little bit more to grab onto. It won't slip out of your hands. They do a good job. It's kind of a simple design. I know they have updated this. Now they have the extend slots back here in the handles, and they have a soft grayish rubbery section right here, which, for a lot of their tools, it doesn't really make any sense because you're getting a full purchase with your whole hand on there. So I still like the classic comfort grips. But my favorite comfort grips have to be from NWS, another German manufacturer. They just have this dialed in so well. Very ergonomic. They're a multi-component. I think this is like 3 different components. So the red is plastic. You have the soft gray rubbery material here. Then all the accents are a lighter gray rubbery material. They do have different handle colors too. If you get the Philo pliers, or Phalo, however you're supposed to pronounce it, it's the exact same handle, but in different colors. They also offer accessories that clip into here. I have the non-contact voltage tester on here. I also have the tether that comes with these, and I have it on another set of pliers. Makes it super handy, makes them customizable. One thing I appreciate about NWS is that no matter what the length of tool, for instance, these are the, trying to remember what size these are. I think these are 150s. I think it's covered. No matter what size the tool is, the handles actually stay the same length. So it gives you a good full purchase. I also have another, I think it's a 150 set of the combination pliers or universal pliers, and they're set up the same way. While we're on the subject of NWS, here's kind of a quirky one from Irwin. It says Vice Grip on there, but these are actually, you can see here, made in Germany. It's a little fuzzy. These are their Ergo strip or Ergo multi-pliers, the angled pliers made by NWS, and these have actually a different grip on them. I don't know if I like them more than the NWS. They're decent. They've always been comfortable. I've had these for years. It's a multi-component handle. The blue is plastic. The blackish gray is rubber, and it gives you a nice wide surface to grab. These are made for comfort, and they do what they say. I have one more example. Maybe you need some insulated pliers. I have several different insulated pliers. Some of them are not that great. Some of them are probably the most comfortable handles that you can get your hands on. If you go with generic insulated tools, they're going to have harsh, bump outs here that protect your hand from sliding up into the metal of the tool while you're working on something live. But Weeha really does a good job on their insulated handles. I'm not the only one that thinks so, but they're very comfortable. They're all contoured so that your hand fits nicely in there. On these 8-in-1 electrician's pliers, they're just the right length. Now, it would be nice if they made these non-insulated because unlike a lot of the Weeha pliers, these handles actually end up being kind of short, and that's because they had to leave room for this bumped out portion here. But it's multi-component. The yellow is plastic. The red is all rubber. And so that gives you a nice grip on your tool. So super comfortable. I wish that you could get more of these Weeha insulated tools easily here in the States. You have to order them. A lot of them are on Amazon. But looking at another comparison, these have to be the most comfortable insulated pliers that you can get. Knipex, is probably right up there too, but these just seem like they're made to fit the human hand. So really like these. They give you some protection. You don't always need that for every tool, but actually that's the only way you can get these 8-in-1s right now. So that's a little discussion on plier handles. I hope that sharing my experiences with all these different brands helps you. Sometimes it's hard when you see a picture on an online listing and you can't touch the tool. It's hard to decide what would be best for you because some of these companies offer different options for handle material. So through my experience, I hope this helps in your purchasing in the future. So I hope you guys like these kind of videos. Let me know, should I do another comparison like this with other tools, like say screwdrivers or something like that? That would be kind of interesting too. There's tons of screwdriver designs and handles. Some of them are not right for you, but some of them might be perfect. So I hope these videos kind of help you make decisions in the future. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.